We're here in Emerald, just having a forage for some mushrooms on this beautiful day. A lot of our varieties actually come from the native forests in Australia, so we've got a lion's mane that came from Victoria and a coral tooth. We actually got our golden gnocchi from Emerald just down this track a couple of years ago during COVID. So to find mushrooms, sometimes you've got to get off the beaten track. This tree was where we found our Emerald golden gnocchi a few years back. There is another mushroom down here if we have a look. Dead trees are a great place to find mushrooms.
Your eyes are heavy with the weight of the world.
Coffee. Keeps you going and keeps your farm running. So my name's Russ Whittam and I am the director / owner of Aussie Mushroom Supplies. I started Aussie Mushroom Supplies in about 2007 and we supply mushroom spawn Australia-wide. We supply farms all over Australia, people at home want to grow mushrooms, ready to fruit kits where you just cut them open and spray some water at them and voila. And we sell the equipment so you can do all the steps at home yourself. So I was injured from motorbike riding, blown knee and couldn't do much, so I was bored at home and I thought, oh, that looks like a challenge to grow some mushrooms. So tried to grow some mushrooms, failed miserably, chucked it all out in the backyard. And then about 6 months later, all these mushrooms popped up right through. I'm like, oh, they grew on their own. And then that sort of intrigued me to have another go and had some success. And I was like, oh, cool, this is pretty cool. At that time, I was working for my parents, so I'd be scooting around the office on a chair, one-legged. My mother was supposed to teach me her job in the office so she could sort of step back and retire a bit. She couldn't let go of her, she wanted to feel important. Yeah, I started working for Whittam Roast when I left school. Oh, I did go to TAFE and do an automotive course. And
Yeah.
did that and I was like, you know what, I don't want to work on bloody cars, it's dirty and disgusting. So it's greasy and I thought I'll come and work here instead.
I'm Gordon Whittam and I own Whittam Roast.
It's been going since?
Which we started in February 1983.
2 months after I was born.
In a little, yeah, it was too. Well, braiding. It's a braiding company really rather than just a rope company because we make a lot of industrial type products. A lot of products that go into the building industry, cordage and ropes that go into the fishing and curtain and blind, hardware.
Running a business with no destination, you're just seeing what happens and keep plugging away.
You can just keep plugging away and improving. Every year you put an extra machine in and an extra this and an extra that, and it just keeps growing.
So I thought, oh, maybe I'll start selling some mushroom equipment and things like that, seeing there was nothing like that online. Started my own business, just buying and selling stuff on eBay, and then just slowly grew from there. And I needed more items to sell to go with it, more for myself to keep growing. So I'd buy a heap of them, sell the majority and keep one for myself so I could fund my hobby. It grew from there. It was pretty just a couple of orders a week and started buying in mason jars for that part of the mushroom growing process and was selling a little bit. And then after a while, all of a sudden started selling nothing. Why haven't I sold anything for like 2 months? So I jumped online and then found there was a company in New South Wales undercut me on I was only doing certain size of jars and they undercut me on by a mile. They're doing free shipping for my price, so no one obviously would buy off me. So I asked my parents for a loan to buy a container of jars so I could bring them in for cheap enough to then sell and be competitive. Bought in the container of jars and it worked out really, really cheap. So I sold the full range of jars for much cheaper than the other company in New South Wales. And then the mason jar fad just took off and then I was selling heaps of orders every day. My business quadrupled in about a month. Well, originally it was supposed to be us both taking over and then I decided to start a business of my own and then when I started getting busy.
And that's grown and grown and grown.
When I got too busy, he's like, see you later, get out. Bought a factory over the road and kicked me out the door and over off I went. His words were, time to go and see what happens.
That's time to go do it.
Yeah, have a proper go at it and see what happens. And that's over 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we have a tendency to dive in at the deep end and then just... The idea is you bite off more than you can chew and you chew like hell.
Although you're earthbound,
Hey John, how's it going?
Hey Russ.
So what is Unearthed Mushrooms and how did it start?
Well, Unearthed Co Mushrooms. I wasn't always Unearthed Co Mushrooms, but I started back as called King Oyster Mushrooms many years ago, in about 2016. So that's when I first grew my mushrooms. Yeah, first grew mushrooms, and basically first grew my mushrooms successfully with using your spawn. So I didn't do what I recommend anyone to do now, which is to buy a grow kit before you start stuffing around with spawn and agar plates, because you need to know how to grow a mushroom before you try to make a substrate or stuff around in the lab. But anyway, that was one of my many learnings. But yeah, back in 2016, started growing from my backyard, and then went from just a little, I don't know, literally growing in I don't even know what I grew in, a closet to begin with. Yeah, and then I went to the hydroponic grow tents, and then flooded out my so many things went wrong. You have no idea. There's just so much failure. In the early days of mushrooms, just so much failure. So anyway, Unearthed Co started when I'd made most of the failures. I still fail every single day at mushrooms, and that's a really important thing for anyone to understand, is that even if you've been doing it on a commercial scale, and even if you're doing it for a long, long time, you're still gonna fail every single day.
Probably for the first 5 or 6 years, that factory I moved into, I set up a lab in there and a big incubation room, so that sort of took up about a third of the factory. It's a pretty small factory, and then all the jars, and then we lasted in that factory 4 years, and then we outgrew it and needed some more space. Ended up building a lab at home in the garage and incubation rooms and stuff, and then I'd just bring things to and from work every day. That was probably my hardest years of my life. I'd be working till 1, 2 a.m. every day, cooking, spawning, and then that was day in, day out, 7 days a week. Well, another factory popped up literally 100 metres away from my parents, so they bought that for me to rent off them, and I built a bigger lab with cool room panels and everything like that. Yeah, a lot of innovation happened, I guess, over those first few years, and it used to become that hard that, yeah, it was we've got to find another way to do it, and we did because we had to, and yeah, probably lasted that factory about 4 years till we outgrew it, and then. I guess for many years I was self-taught, and I guess the turning point of my business was when I went to Belgium, and I went and did Mycelia's substrate making course. It was I guess a bit of an eye-opener of how things should be done. So everything down to cleanliness and how to sterilise things properly, and all the steps to check that everything's done properly. Then after the week of substrate making course, they did a tour of all these different farms that they supply and other companies they deal with supply. And then seeing the difference of the quality from obviously people that fully sterilise like Mycelia to people that only super pasteurise, so it's not fully sterile, and then their customers having contamination problems versus obviously fully sterile things that had zero problems. So that was a big eye-opener and sort of showed me what quality standard I had to set for my business, and yeah, come back and made lots of upgrades to our second factory laboratories, and then that upped our quality and we kept getting busier and busier. And then before we pulled the trigger on building another facility, I actually went back to do their spawn production course, and I learned even more and learned a bit of the story of Mycelia and where they came from, and their basement at home back in the early days, and building bigger and bigger and bigger. I remember leaving there, Casper saying on my way out, he's like, "You'll be right, go see what happens." So then came back and designed our new facility, based a little bit off their facility, with a bit of what I've learnt over the years from my father's business, and a little bit differently, efficiency wise and stuff, and laid out differently. I guess the biggest thing I learned at Mycelia was people are the biggest problem, so the standard of what you need to wear in your labs and cleaning routines and stuff is sort of the most important part of the process. So I guess walking up to their facility the first time, I was amazed at how big it was and all the things they did there and how they did it. And like they said, they did about 5 to 6 tons per day of material. And after we built this new facility, that's what we do now, but with obviously a lot less staff. So pretty chuffed that we can make a quality product like they taught us to do, and yeah, with less people. We moved here, and again, 7 days a week, working countless hours. I built this place myself with my builder mate Najee and all these workers. They'd come after work and all night we'd just build rooms until midnight every night. It took us at least 7 months to build and get it all fit out and running, and then we'd be making the bags down the road and then drive them over on the truck to incubate here while disassembling other rooms to finish off building the next lot of rooms and stuff here.
You just gotta keep going with it and keep learning, because like we're dealing with a living organism or living organisms, and they're always gonna like
do what they
want to do, and they're gonna challenge us. I started like the actual like doing it really properly, like, and this sort of involved like taking it from the backyard to employing people, big step, to like really supplying restaurants with good quality mushrooms on a consistent basis. And that's a really hard thing. Like you can start off as a small business and you can sort of grow mushrooms and they kind of come in bursts and things stuff up and then everything comes together and then so you've always got mushrooms like in random times and it's not consistent. And so to be successful, you have to consistently grow, you know, the quality you're after and the quantity you're after. And that's really hard to do. So I turned to Unearthed when I felt I could do that. And then I could actually get good restaurants and get good wholesalers and stuff who could trust me to be consistent
And supply.
as a supplier, because that's one of the main challenges. Yeah.
Although you're earthbound, you're
His mother worried about it a bit, especially when we bought the factory that he's in at the moment. That stressed her a little bit.
It was a bit of a gamble, that one. It did take everything at the time.
I mean, we were getting ready to retire. We were saving up to call it quits.
They were
And then all
ready.
of a sudden, everything had to go to buying that factory. Plus the fact we were further in debt than we've ever been in our life.
Everything they had saved and the biggest loan they've ever got in their lives.
Yeah.
It's just to help support the growth.
We must have obviously just done it at the right time, because after that they've just gone through the roof, Randy.
Yeah, all the property prices
Just skyrocketed. It's ridiculous.
But there have been, like, I guess people don't see that part, but there's a whole other business and people that were helping
To help get
get
it
us
going.
off the ground, and it's just, I always say I wouldn't be here without them, and people are just like, you must be making millions, and I'm like,
No,
it's
not
not a
like
whole other
that.
person,
It's
whole other company
40.
funding everything,
40 odd years of
tucking it away,
battling and
then
tucking it away.
it takes a lot of luck and a lot of hard work and a lot of hours.
Yeah. It takes a lot of hours
A lot
work.
of hours.
For me, like to be able to grow the best mushrooms that are out there, and we've been award winning and everything. There's a lot of other good growers out there. Don't get me wrong. Look, well, growers that are better than me. But like in terms of producing a quality product consistently and running a business around that, I think we've done pretty well. But I think at the core of like the quality of the mushrooms that we grow has always been what you're producing. So it's been your spawn, or your bags, your cultures, and what you're doing at Aussie Mushroom Supplies. Ever since like I started, basically like in 2016, when like I got my first like bulk spawn bag, like bulk spawn box.
You have to send me that picture.
And like, yeah, it's me like going, yeah, here we go, like bulk spawn, like here we go on this journey, right? And yeah, it's journey that led here. And that's always what I've been using, whether I've been making my own bags and been using your spawn, or whether you're making the grow bags themselves, which most of my product now comes directly from your grow bags. And a lot of those grow bags are exactly what you can buy retail online, is what we're growing here commercially in the farm.
Yeah, I tell everyone 15 years of mistakes built this place, so yeah, like it was just constantly, even now we still do upgrades every year, like every Christmas, it's like, right, what can we do to improve this place? And we're making random machinery now just to do the different steps. So you just want people to be successful when they grow. So there's so many videos out there and just information that's not right. And people always want to have problems. You just want people, to have a good experience when they grow mushrooms. So I'll try and make sure all the proper little steps are in our videos, just so when people do it, it works. They get all these mushrooms. Aussie Mushrooms is literally just value for money is what we want, and people being able to grow mushrooms at home and just have the fun that I've had growing mushrooms over the years. So it's just amazing seeing this fungus consume the material you sterilise, and then these mushrooms pop out and it's just like, oh, it's really cool. So it's just a fun hobby, and it's just amazing how all fungus all works. And yeah, I'm just a year 10 dropout that love growing mushrooms. So started a business growing mushrooms.
You can still take flight. Although you're earthbound.